I see the streaming live button. So with that, I am going to call this ART meeting to order. I am here representing planning today, this afternoon. Welcome everyone. We are missing today Mr. Brad Fagrell from the Building Standards Division, but that does not interfere with our quorum for ART. So we are still able to have a meeting today. With that being said, we are having no minor modifications to inform the ART of today, but we do have meeting minutes from June 18th, 2020. So if anybody has any corrections, we would take those into the record now, and if not, we would just go ahead and consider those to be approved. Hearing no comments, so we are considering those meeting minutes from June 18th, 2020 to be approved. And we have one case today on the agenda, which is for Bridge Park, Block D, which includes planters for one of their street frontages to act as barricades. And it is a minor project for the intersection of Larimer Street and Longshore Street, and Chase Ridge is the planner that is presenting this application this afternoon.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As was mentioned, this is a request for review and approval of a minor project review for the installation of 5 cylindrical barricade planters located in Block D of the Bridge Park development. The site is highlighted in yellow here. You can see it has frontage on Riverside Drive to the west and Longshore Street to the east. The area in particular that we are discussing today is actually indicated by the star in the southeast portion of that site. This is the proposed site plan in greater detail. You can see the barricade planters outlined in red on the right side of the graphic. You can see these are located immediately west of the intersection of Longshore Street and Larimer Drive, and east of the D2 building and the lobby to that building. On the south side of the graphic, or the bottom of the graphic, is the existing green space or open space between buildings D1 and D2. The applicant has indicated that these barricade planters are desired to serve as a protective barrier between pedestrians and the lobby of building D2. In the case of inclement weather, Larimer Drive does have a significant negative slope toward the river and building D2. So these are essentially to avoid a dangerous scenario of a car sliding through the intersection. These planters are proposed to be located within city right-of-way, which ultimately requires the support of the city engineer and ART approval. This is a graphic showing the composition of the proposed planter barricades. So you can see you've got the planter on the outside. There's obviously room for soil, and then the barricade is in the middle of these, so you're not actually going to be able to see that. So it's got room for the ready-mix concrete and rebar cage. This is not necessarily representative of the exact shape, because the planter barricades are proposed to be cylindrical and 3 feet in diameter and approximately 30 inches in height. These are some applicant-provided examples from the manufacturer. Again, these are going to be cylindrical, so the most similar to what is proposed is on the right side here. The applicant did not provide a color, so staff is recommending that the applicant provide a color that is complementary to buildings D1 and D2, which is subject to staff approval. This was reviewed against all applicable criteria, and planning is recommending approval with 2 conditions. The first being that the applicant continue to work with engineering in the permitting phase to locate planters to minimize disruption to the pedestrian circulation, And again, the second one, that the applicant choose a color for the planters that is complementary to buildings D1 and D2. I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have, and the applicant is also in attendance today. Thank you.
It looks like Sean has a question.
Yeah, do we have a planting plan for what they're planting and what the soil depth is on the top of that?
That was not provided. That information was not provided. But I don't know if Dawn, if you have any input on that, possibly.
Yeah, I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes.
But yeah, so that barricade is going to be about, I want to say it's like 6 inches below the surface, but it's pretty narrow. So there's going to be quite a bit of soil in there, and it'll just kind of wrap down this, the side of that barricade. And then the planting planters, our plan was just to match kind of our semi-annual changeover of plants. So what you see out here planted, and then they do a fall planting and they do a spring planting, I think. So it's just going to be part of that rotation. It'll be just mixed in with all the other planters and whatnot.
Just more annual seasonal interest type stuff is what you're getting at. Yep.
Yep.
I guess the only other question, and this probably falls more to you, Aaron, would be with circulation around the planters, and I don't know what the distances are to the tree and the planting bed as well as the curb, and a distance from the walk. But like I said, that's probably more yours, I would assume.
Yeah, and so what we've done, we've talked this through with the city engineer. We actually walked the area on Thursday. It's actually looking pretty good down there. So we're okay with the location and the concept, but that's where that first condition came from, was our request. There wasn't, in the drawings, there's not a fine location of those things. So not that we would change holistically how they're located and where they're located, but my charge from him as we move forward is, as those come in and we have more detailed location information, to maximize the area that we can utilize for people walking through. And especially, we already did locate or point out with the tree and the tree grate that's in that area. So that was one of the places that we're going to focus on. But that was definitely one of the things that we noticed when we were down there, and that's where that first condition came from.
And we thickened that slab up in that entire area there. So if you would prefer us to slide them closer to the curb or whatever, we can. There's flexibility. Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I had one about, so what is the arrangement? I mean, it sounds like Crawford Hoying would be responsible for the planning. Is there any sort of maintenance agreement? How does that work when these planters are located within the right of way as far as upkeep? I know there's some other planting beds in the area, but I just wondered, is this something that gets added to a certain agreement, or how is that going to work with these planters?
We would probably have to make some sort of adjustment to the agreement. That for us, it's kind of probably just be part of our routine watering. We'll take care of the plants and everything like we would any other of the plants. But to be completely honest, I'm still working out the purchase of these things. I wanted to wait for this meeting on what the finish is on that, and that's what I'll get to you when I get a final answer from them. But I think it's just kind of a natural finish on the planters, but I'll get more information on that. It's kind of weird. I have to order them, but then they kick you into the design phase where you can choose your. It's really odd, but I have to buy them before I can actually choose a planter, so finish. So, okay. But I can get that to you.
So perhaps we ought to add a condition that any necessary maintenance agreements be updated to address these planters.
Yeah, I
as
think
part of this?
I think that'd be appropriate.
That's what I was going to mention.
Okay. Anybody else?
I guess once they're in place too, I mean, these are pretty much immobile. I mean, that's the whole point of them, right? So once they're down, they're down. There's
Yeah,
not really-
I would suggest that we, if you want to have a site meeting, when we get them on site, we can place them where on site, take a look at them. And that if you, wherever you want them, that's where we can put them. I mean, because the rebar, we have to drill in the rebar into the concrete. And then we put the cage in there and then we pour it all together. We'll epoxy the rebar into the concrete. So when someone hits it, that's what it's tied to. So
So does the brick come up then to?
it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to, you just go through it?
Yeah. So yeah, my thought was let's put them, you know, at our spacing where we have them, and you guys can come take a look at them. If you want to move closer to the curb or wherever, we can do that before we do anything. Because you're right, because once they're in there, they're in there.
So then that leads me to another condition. So I'm thinking that the applicant work with staff to field locate the planters.
Yep, we can do that.
Anybody else have any questions? And then Don, you are in agreement with the conditions that we had and the 2 that we added?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Great. Chase, you have what you need? I wrote them down as well.
Yeah, I can bring them up if you all would like to see that. Unless,
Thank you.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. So I've added that any necessary maintenance agreements be updated to include the proposed planters, and that the applicant work with staff to field locate the planters.
Great.
Okay.
So if everybody is in agreement with that, we would consider this application to stand as approved. Okay, everybody is nodding, so I think we are in good shape here.
Great.
All right, Don, and you can go ahead and order them.
All right.
Thank you so much for working with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Our next ART meeting is scheduled for July the 16th. I think we have a couple of cases still hanging out there, so we are likely to have this meeting, but it likely also will be a short one. So we'll keep the schedule as is, and then you get a free half an hour or an hour if you're lucky. All right, with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for joining.